I had been working for a freelance news agency in Liverpool which had struck up a correspondence with Brady in the late 1980s, and when the reporter who had previously taken charge of that moved on, I began becoming Brady's contact, and then after a couple of years of working with the BBC, the letters continued.
So did they make several claims about other people he purported to have killed, or was it just this one particular one?
Well, over the course of those 3.5 years, I must have received in the order of about 36 letters from Brady, which touched upon quite a few subjects, but only in 2 did he make specific reference to other killings. In one, the letter which has been published, as he said today, he details how he killed 2 people in Manchester, one a man on waste ground behind the station, as he put it, and a woman who he claims to have beaten and dumped in a canal. In addition, he talks about having written a 4-page letter to Strathclyde Police in which he detailed 2 other killings, one in Glasgow and one above Loch Long.
And what contact, Brendan, did you have with the police over these claims?
Well, obviously, as a journalist receiving such information, particularly, regardless of fact of whether they came from Ian Brady or anybody else, I spoke directly with Strathclyde Police and Greater Manchester Police. Now, the incidents to which Brady referred had been mentioned to Detective Chief Superintendent Peter Topping. He, of course, was the man who brought Brady and Hindley back on the moors in an attempt to find Pauline Reade and Keith Bennett in the mid-1980s. Now, Peter Topping referred to those in his book and said that he had spoken to Strathclyde Police and had checked out the killings, the alleged killings in Manchester, but found them to be without substance, which is the similar response that I received.
Okay. Brendan, in the letters, you say 36 or so. I'm sure you've read them over and over again. We've been talking this week about his mental state because of the ruling, the tribunal ruling that he must stay in the mental hospital. Do the letters give an indication of his mental state?
Absolutely. For much of the correspondence, it was a volume of correspondence ranging from notes which were no more than 2 pages to 12 pages of very tightly spaced, neat handwriting slanting to the right. It was possible, if you like, to determine his state of mind because when he was more controlled, he was talking about subjects that perhaps he wasn't so angry about. His writing was rational, the sentence was shorter, but when he was talking about the likes of Peter Topping and Myra Hindley and the authorities who he'd attested, the paragraphs would span entire pages. His language would be peppered with references to cranks and conspiracies. So it was certainly possible to get a sense of almost the emotions bursting through the page. But what was also clear is that for much of the time, he was not necessarily just controlled in how he expressed himself, but he was eager to try and control those, including media, who he dealt with. And certainly it was an exchange from my point of view and from the point of view of the other journalists who spoke to him. We were trying to get information to try and solve the remaining, the whereabouts of the Keith Bennett's body. But of course, for him, it was in a sense to try and shape almost his perception within the media.